Hello everyone, welcome back to Touch the Fire Twice. I'm Joshua, and I'm here today to do an in-depth sniff and comparison review of the HomeWorx by Slatkin & Co. 18-ounce 4-wick basket of apples fall candle. So about a week or two ago, HomeWorx.shop launched kind of a fall preview of maybe 7 or so fall autumnal scents. I did a purchase just actually for 3 cents, 4 candles, but 2 of the same in 2 different form factors. Basket of apples, banana maple pancakes, and toasted vanilla pumpkin. Actually, I've never owned any of those scents. They're all new to me. Was primarily interested in this and the toasted vanilla pumpkin, but I also wanted to try the banana maple pancakes. Not really a fragrance that's typically in my wheelhouse, but people seem to really love it and say that it's an authentic banana, which rarely happens in wax. So I wanted to give it a try. So I will be doing reviews coming up on both toasted vanilla pumpkin as well as the banana maple pancakes. But I wanted to start with the basket of apples. First of all, I did burn it. So I have this is a post-burn review. Going to talk primarily about the fragrance, but also a little bit about the performance and dig into this. This is actually a sort of relaunch of a scent that was originally out in 2018 in the figural baskets, so kind of the Farmstand baskets that came out. Started as peach, strawberry, blueberry, and apple, and actually did an auto delivery later that fall where I don't know if it was just the one or if there were others, but it was kind of basket of pumpkins that had Farmstand pumpkin in it. So Basket of Apples is not a new scent, though the name is new. Harry Slatkin on Instagram and then on the HomeWorx.shop website confirmed that this is a, quote unquote repackage of the Farmstand Apples candle. So very good to know if you loved it or if you didn't love it, what you're getting when you purchase Basket of Apples. And same thing with the toasted vanilla pumpkin that was formerly amaretto pumpkin. So good to know, again, going into it. The one thing that's a little strange for me that is a bit of this is not a rant video by any means, but a little bit of a gripe with HomeWorx is that when they launched, Harry had top, middle, bottom notes for every fragrance, and it would really tell you the in-depth build of a fine home fragrance. And HomeWorx is billed as a fine home fragrance. That's the language that they use when they're doing their presentations on their site, etc. And so I love that because I want to know the top, middle, bottom notes and really try to pick it out, almost like you're a sommelier of wine. Now they really just give you, in this case, 4 or 5 notes on the bottom. When going back to the Farmstand apples, so the same fragrance, there were 7 notes listed. So I don't know why they cut back on those. I don't know if it's just like they don't want to take up space or they don't want to scare people off with a note that is really like a background note and they're just showing the primary notes. That's my guess. But for fragrance fans and for fine home fragrance, I would love to see more of the in-depth notes on all of these. But small gripe, you still can get a sense of what it is by the 4 that they list, right? So the notes in this one, that said, green apple, red apple, maple, vanilla, and sugarcane. Now I will say there's no comma between maple vanilla, but there is a space. I don't think it means maple vanilla. The original notes actually had maple and vanilla separately, so I'm gonna call those as separate. So green apple, red apple, maple, vanilla, and sugarcane. So interesting, it's not caramel, but it is supposed to be a sweetness with a sugarcane, which is a pure sweetness. The original notes on Farmstand apples, which I don't know if I clarified, I did not have in the past. I just had the blueberry Farmstand and then the Farmstand that launched this spring. Green apple, red apple, black cherry, maple, vanilla, sugarcane, and banana leaves. So really just adding black cherry and banana leaves in there for the full notes. Sniffing this, 2 things I will say. First, off of the jump, it smells different post-burn than pre-burn, which for me is not during the burn. Like sometimes things come out when you're melting it. That's usually a good thing. You're getting a little bit more depth. Some maybe the mid notes or bottom notes you didn't always get on that first sniff, the kind of earlier volatile fragrance notes. But it's not good if it smells differently after it's been burned, in the sense that I think what I'm smelling now is more so, I don't know if the wicks in this are not right and burned too hot. I didn't burn it for too long. It pulled out. I will say it performed well as far as getting a fairly healthy pull, not overly deep. I burned it for maybe 2-3 hours max. I believe 2 or 3 times. And sniffing it now, it has that burnt smell that sometimes you get with Bath & Body Works candles, or if you burn a candle for too long. Burning great, but gets a deep pull and you're just kind of scorching either the wax or the fragrance oils in there. I feel like, though this wasn't a heavy throw, I will say it was probably a 5, maybe 5 or 6. Probably a 5. I'd love it to be a 7 or 8. I don't know. I burned it the way it should be, but I do think there was a bit of a scorching going on here. Not so much that you can visualize or see or sooting or smoking during. It appeared to be a good burn, but it just smells different than if I were to have a fresh, unlit one that would smell a bit more pure and fresh. And this one does have sort of just a bit of that, not quite kerosene, but a burnt, just a little bit of an off burnt scent, which is disappointing. Hopefully, typically that won't come out when you relight it. A lot of times Bath & Body Works candles get that halfway through towards the bottom of the blend, maybe bottom third or bottom half, and it does sort of then disrupt the rest of the fragrance, but I'm hopeful that that won't happen here. Kind of TBD. You'll see here sort of a messy burn a little bit, and with a couple of my HomeWorx candles this year, they tend to, once they cool off after burning, crack and sink around the edges, which I don't know that that is a bad thing necessarily, but it is different. So knowing that there have been some burn issues with wax and wicks this year, and throw, of course, with HomeWorx, I think it's at least worth noting some of the key differences that I and others are seeing in the overall burn performance. I'm gonna start with the scent on this, and then I do have actually 5 candles I'm gonna compare this to that are a mixture of HomeWorx and Bath & Body Works, kind of Slatkin & Co. era scents. So wanting this to be just your fresh, again, basket of apples, Farmstand apples, you're kind of pure, so no spices, no bakery, no gourmand, maple, vanilla in there, but barely can smell them. So it really is more of a fresh apple scent, which I think we all want going into fall, and then getting deeper into our gourmands or ciders or, you know, caramels, things like that, where you're gonna get a really kind of luscious scent. So sniffing this, again, this is a bit on scent memory at this point because it smells a little off right now. Certainly you get the fresh apple, green, red. I do believe there are differences between apple types, certainly. This one I don't really pick out a tartness. It's more like kind of, for me, like maybe a Macintosh apple, which you don't hear much about anymore, but I feel like in the 90s it was like Red Delicious or apple, and then Fuji picked up, and now there's, you know, a million varietals of apples. But the Macintosh is just a little bit mushy, a little bit kind of grainy sometimes. And I get some of that with this, so almost like a Macintosh apple, which can be really nice in home fragrance. When it comes to maple and vanilla and sugarcane, this is not overly sweet, so I wouldn't put sugarcane in here. I would maybe almost put like, perhaps a little bit of a wood in here, almost like not full on oak wood, but there could be some apple wood or just something where it's more of like an orchard fragrance versus just the basket of apples, or even just like the leaves and the stems. Like, they have orchard fragrances that are more blossom, fruit, tree mixes, which I really like. This isn't quite that far, but it's not as pure as just like a sliced apple. And I'm almost wondering if what I was hoping for with this was maybe Deliciously Apple from HomeWorx, which I never have purchased. But the notes on that one I'll just read to you here were: freshly picked from the orchard, ripened juicy red apples and a touch of tart green apples are combined with mouth-watering pear to create an amazingly luscious orchard moment. So pear and apple, many pears, many apples have a bit of each other in them, and they can sometimes be difficult to discern, but Deliciously Apple sounds like more of a pure, fresh apple. This one, a little bit more going on with potentially that maple, vanilla, sugarcane. The original notes, the banana leaves, the black cherry. In some sense, I can see why it's not listed on here. I don't smell anything particularly green like a banana leaf would bring you. Of course, banana leaf would just be a leaf. It wouldn't be a tropical or banana kind of fragrance. And the black cherry doesn't have that kind of sweetness that you typically get from a black cherry, or the tartness either. But again, for me, this is coming off right now, admittedly, disappointingly to say, a miss, both on the post-burn fragrance, though again, performance was solid as far as getting the pool and not being overly sooty, and just getting an average for HomeWorx throw, not a, you know, knock you out, but a 5. You could smell it, though again, I'm still looking for something stronger. The HomeWorx of 2018, 19, 20. Still hope we're seeing that. Little bit disappointed that there were a lot of people talking, a lot of, you know, feedback, and myself included, in early 2022, even maybe late 2021, hoping that, oh, by fall, the next season would be sort of fixed. And I don't know if that's the case here. I think the jury is still out on that. Based on this, on throw, I'm not sure that the fragrance oils have either been increased to what they once were, or if the formulation has been corrected from spring. We'll have to see as we get further into it. But knowing that the cycle of developing, ordering, testing, pouring, selling is close to, I believe, a year-long cycle, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see true corrections until next year. The pour date on this being F220306, I believe that means March 6th of 2022. So if they were just noticing the issues in the springtime like we were, it may have been too late to make corrections. Full conjecture, don't know. Maybe some of the HomeWorx ambassadors or influencers have a better sense with their connection to HomeWorx on that, if they're hearing anything, because HomeWorx has not made any sort of official statements along the way, which would be, I think, a really good thing for the fragrance community and HomeWorx fans. However, For me, this is disappointing. It's not a repurchase, primarily due to the post-burn scent and secondarily to the actual fragrance. The fragrance is fine. It's not anything elevated. To me, it's sort of a juicy-ish apple, but it's nothing that makes you go, oh, like where I want a fragrance, and HomeWorx has done this time and time again, so I know they're capable of it, where you go, oh my, oh, that's so good. I just want to eat it, or I just want to smell it constantly. And this just ain't it in that sense, which is a bummer. Do have 5 candles to compare it to. I want to kind of dig in here. What I was hoping for was, back in the day, this is 2011, Slatkin & Co., Autumn Apple. This was the apple that Bath & Body Works and Slatkin used for many years before they replaced it with Farmstand apple, which is not good. Notes on this one, similar. Crisp and bright, the sparkling scent of autumn apples with pear blossoms and a hint of applewood. Interestingly, this seems more like the orchard scent. We've got the blossom, the fruit, and the wood, but it's just such a pure, clean, fresh, bright. It's almost, you smell the apple skin, but it feels like you bit into a fresh apple, where it's just that little burst of apple juice when you bite into it, and that crisp coolness. Even, this is from 2011. Even 11 years later, I can still smell that freshness to it that, to me, Basket of Apples never had. Then you compare it to Farmstand apple, which replaced autumn apple at Bath & Body Works. Notes in this very similar. Sparkling orchard favorite, reminiscent of bright sunny day, picking apples with friends. Notes of Macintosh apple, pear blossom, and oak versus the applewood. So basically the same notes. You would think would just be a different name. However, very much a different fragrance after autumn apple. I believe autumn apple didn't come back. They've always done, their heirloom apples, their Farmstand apples, their Gingham apples, all of the apples, even sort of the Honeycrisp apples that Bath & Body Works has done since, this was 2013, have primarily been based on this, and I'm not a fan of this. That's why I purchased it one time when it launched, burned it, a third of the way through, and really haven't touched it since then. I know that Kent of the Candle Channel describes this one very well as sort of like grody, musty, a bit of oakiness, which I don't mind wood mixed with my fruit. It can be done really well. You'll see that in another candle here. But this one just is plasticky kind of and artificial and almost like a cheap imitation apple, if that makes sense. Like if you had a pure apple extract and if you had an imitation apple extract, that's what you're kind of getting in this for me. And it's just not, it's not the moment. And the bummer is Basket of Apples is closer to Farmstand apple for me than it is to autumn apple. One other one, this was I think a test scent that failed at Bath & Body Works called Gingham apple. A sugar sweet delight to find in the orchard, golden delicious apples with juicy pear, ripe peaches, and sugar cane. So a couple of shared notes there as far as the apples and the sugar cane. But this is very similar to Farmstand apple. It doesn't have much of a scent on it now, being a small candle that is 10 years old. But at the time, I remember I didn't really love it. A lot of folks didn't love it. Great collection that came out in the market 2012. It was one of Slatkin & Co.'s last, I think, spring collections, but not a fan of that either. Just not that fresh bite enough. A little bit more kind of like an apple that would appear in your, down home country craft store potpourri blends, but without the warmth of all of the kind of dried florals and spices that you often get in those fragrances. It's like they pull the kind of apple, like a dried apple almost, out of there and use that in here without that fresh apple. Just a major miss to me. Wanted to quickly compare just to a spiced cider, only in the sense that the notes on this was a Slatkin & Co., and the notes back in the day on this said a delicious blend straight from the orchard that mulls 3 varieties of fresh apples with nutmeg and clove. Beautiful, beautiful scent. I wish Bath & Body Works would bring this back. It is a true spiced cider that can just last all throughout the fall, kind of in that pumpkin apple vibe from Bath & Body Works. Nothing like this because you don't have any spices in here, which is correct. You don't want that. There are plenty of other spiced apples. And the other one I'll compare it to, I believe I have maybe 2 other apple scents from HomeWorx, the Orchard Nectar and the Orchard Apple, which are very similar. I actually have a video where I compared those to Drenched Apple Flower, which is 2012 Slatkin & Co. You can view that video here back a few months ago. I love Orchard Nectar. Notes on this one, red apple, golden nectar, apple blossom, and orchard wood. This is that one where you're getting the sweetness, but it's the sort of conceptual orchard fragrance, which is what you're going for in here. And it's beautiful. It's slightly floral, heavy on the apple, a nice balance of the wood in there. Dewy, a little tiny bit green almost, but just really, really nice. Not a fall scent, a spring scent, a spring apple into summer, which you don't always see. Beautiful blend. Nothing like this. This truly is meant to be your fall fresh apple. I'm hoping we get a fresher apple without cider or caramel or spices, like the Deliciously apple that was pretty straightforward, just apple, maybe a little bit of pear without other things in it, because that's what I really crave and want, especially early into autumn. And I feel like this is probably what they're going for with that, but for me, it's just a miss. So overall, again, the primary thing that's making me say that this is like, I wouldn't recommend and do not enjoy it today is the fact that it just smells kind of grody and burnt. And I followed exactly what they say. Right on the bottom it says, do not burn a candle for more than 4 hours at a time. I probably didn't burn it for more than 2 hours at a time, maybe pushing to 3. And it just smells, I smell more of a burnt note, a burnt wax and wick note than fragrance, which is disappointing. Y'all know I love HomeWorx. Anything from Slatkin & Co. I've always been a fan of. Harry Slatkin has developed some of my all-time favorite scents. If I were to do a video of my top 10 scents across all brands of all time, it would probably be majority Slatkin & Co. I know that he can do better. I know that HomeWorx can do better, and I'm just waiting for them to do better. So that's my review on Basket of Apples. Hopefully Toasted Vanilla Pumpkin, little heads up there. I will say I really am enjoying that. Would like it to be stronger, but really, really nice blend. So again, it's hit or miss. It's not all miss. There are gonna be misses. There are plenty of hits as well. So again, this isn't a rant or an anti-HomeWorx video by any sense. I just want them to do better with their quality control across the board. Because we know that when the fragrances that they build are done in quality wax, wick, formulation, fragrance oil ratios, it's some of the best across the board. And I'd happily pay the $30 for it versus the 18 that feels more appropriate to pay like 15 to 18 for these when there's the miss quality on some of them. I'll pay the 30, just make them all amazing. That's really what we want to see. So let me know what you think of Basket of Apples or any of the other fall fragrances. I did not purchase Gold Nectar or Fall Farmstand. If anyone knows those well and would recommend those compared to what I'm not liking or liking of Basket of Apples, please let me know. And until next time, take care.